It turns out the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which is the only top-level lab for researching viruses in China, and by the way, a lab that received $3.7 million from the Obama administration, was very close to the site of the coronavirus outbreak.
Well, I think it escaped from the lab because we have the Chinese government basically telling us that it did. Wuhan is the only level 4 laboratory in all of China. So that's where you would put a dangerous pathogen. Whether you were genetically engineering it to be a weapon or not, that's where you would be experimenting on it. So it makes sense that the epicenter of the epidemic, that the lab there would be the source of that virus.
Oh, Stephen Mosher, he's crazy. Actually, looks like he was probably right. New York Magazine today has a remarkable piece, hardly a conservative magazine, written by a guy called Nicholson Baker, hardly a conservative activist. After a lot of research, like a year's worth of research, talking to epidemiologists, virologists all over the world, Baker concludes that the most likely explanation for the emergence of this virus is that it escaped from that lab in Wuhan. It turns out scientists around the world agree with him. They just didn't want to say so. You know who else agrees with him? The Deputy National Security Advisor, Matt Pottinger. In a recent Zoom call with British officials, he said this, quote, "There's a growing body of evidence that the lab is the most credible source of the virus." Given this, and this is news you may not have seen today because Donald Trump made a phone call to somebody, but we thought it was real news, and we thought it was a perfect opportunity to invite back Stephen Mosher. He's the president of the Population Research Institute and the author of Bully of Asia, Why China's Dream is the New Threat to the World Order, a prescient title. Mr. Mosher joins us tonight. Thanks so much for coming back. I knew in my gut that there would come a day when you would do something of a victory lap on our show. You're one of the early brave people. Now, to be clear, we don't know for a fact this happened, but suddenly your position seems like a growing consensus. Why?
Well, I think the evidence is obvious to anybody who looks at it. Tucker, we have not in the past year found a natural analog to the China virus. That is, we haven't found a coronavirus in a bat or a pangolin or anything that looks at all like the China virus. It looks like a lab creation. We also, of course, now have the of the very courageous whistleblower, Dr. Yan Limeng, whom you had on your show. I understand that we have another whistleblower who's escaped from China, providing further confirmation. That hasn't been made public yet. But all roads lead to the Wuhan laboratory. And why didn't we hear about this earlier? Because the people who were funding the lab, and you mentioned a lot of money going to that lab from the United States, were the people who wrote the denial in The Lancet last spring, saying that this was all a conspiracy theory, that this was not a lab creation at all, that it came from nature, that it had a so-called zoonotic origin. It didn't. They were lying. They were part of the scam that kept this information from the American public for the last year. And the topper really, Tucker, is this, that China itself is now changing its story. They've said that, well, it may not have come from the wet market, but maybe it came from a cave where a bunch of miners contracted something in 2012 and spread from there. So if they're changing their story, what does that tell you about the origin of the virus?
And of course, China has shut down all inquiry into the origin of the virus, which ought to be a red alert to the rest of us. Stephen Mosher, vindicated, as far as I can tell, to some large extent, and we appreciate your coming back on tonight. We'll see you again, I hope.
Thank you.
So if, like most Christians for the past 2,000 years, you spent your life ending prayer with amen, we must inform you that you are sexist. We just learned that from a very prominent Democrat in the United States Congress. We're going to show you how it's really done. That's straight ahead. Plus, we've got coverage of the Trump rally in Dalton, Georgia tonight. The president's just landed in the state. We'll be right back.
I want to back up real quick to what they was talking about this lab. When it first broke out, probably in February or March, I had made gestures that it come from a lab rather than a bat or a penguin or whatever, to the point that North Korea, that kept talking about a Christmas present that was going to be given to Donald Trump in 2019, may have been the ones to manufacture this virus, which it's hard for me to wrap my mind around anybody that would be willing to do this, and drive about 1,000 miles to drop it off in the area to make it look like that it come from Wahoo laboratory. And now it's accelerating, it's migrating, it's mutating, it's evolving, and it's turning into something that's now 7 times more lethal towards attacking children in its existence. It's just hard for me to wrap my mind around that anybody would be willing to do this. But our United States military, since the existence of our military, going all the way back to the early 1800s, have been concerned about somebody making a germ like this that could basically take out a third to half or possibly genocide every human being upon to the planet. That has been one of our national security concerns since the existence of our military, of knowing that if something like this was to ever break out, it could absolutely be the death to many, many people. And I'm just not talking about a few 100,000 or a few 100 million. I'm talking about a few billion people on the planet. Yet if it ever mutated into this monster that it could very well mutate into, who's to say what this virus is going to do and how much havoc that it's going to cause up onto the planet? Scientists knows that something like this could not have been engineered from a natural source pertaining to a bat or a penguin or something like that, that it had to be engineered in a laboratory. They have pinpointed it to the point that now we know within a doubt that it was man-made. It was made by a demon. Demons all over the world. Only one true Satan, but many demons. So, in the existence of where we're at right now is only to help to verify the authenticity of what the Bible talks about, that in the last days, perilous times, which means dangerous times, will fall upon the society. We've never seen nothing like this. The only thing that we can do is pray that we're smart enough to combat it, beat it, eradicate it, and destroy it. Because it will be an enemy to society. It's already showed itself to be an enemy to society. They're trying to combat it by creating this vaccination shot. But, if the virus is going to mutate and change, who's to say 6 months from now that shot will even be effective upon to the human race? It may change and evolve over into something else that shot won't even come close of killing or taking care of. We're living in very, very sad, Aquarius times right now. That we all need to pray about. Growing concerns. Growing concerns that the virus was engineered in a lab somewhere on this planet. So sad. Good luck to all of us. And shalom.